Track information about brokerage services. Texas law requires all real estate license holders to give the following information about brokerage services to prospective buyers, tenants, sellers, and landlords. There are two types of real estate license holders: a broker, who is responsible for all brokerage activities, including acts performed by sales agents sponsored by the broker. There's a sales agent, who must be sponsored by a broker and works with clients on behalf of the broker. A broker's minimum duties required by law. A client is the person or party that the broker represents. So when we represent someone, we put the interest of the client above all others, including the broker's own interests. We inform the client of any material information about the property or transaction received by the broker. We answer the client's questions and present any offer to or counteroffer from the client, and treat all parties to a real estate transaction honestly and fairly. Written agreements are required in certain situations. A license holder who performs brokerage activities for a prospective buyer of residential property must enter into a written agreement with the buyer before showing any residential property to the buyer, or if no residential property will be shown, before presenting an offer on behalf of the buyer. This written agreement must contain specific information required by Texas law. For more information on these requirements, see Section 1101.563 on the Texas Occupations Code. Even if a written agreement is not required to avoid disputes, all agreement between you and a broker should be in writing and clearly established. 1. The broker's duties and responsibilities to you and your obligations under the agreement. And 2. The amount or rate of compensation the broker will receive and how this amount is determined. A license holder can represent a party in a real estate transaction. As agent for owner, which is the seller or landlord, the broker becomes the property owner's agent through an agreement with the owner, usually in a written listing to sell or property management agreement. An owner's agent must perform the broker's minimum duties above and must inform the owner of any material information about the property or transaction known by the agent, including information disclosed to the agent by the buyer or buyer's agent. An owner's agent fees are not set by law and are fully negotiable. As a representative for the buyer-tenant, the broker becomes the buyer-tenant's agent by agreeing to represent the buyer, usually through a written representation agreement. A buyer's agent must perform the broker's minimum duties above and must inform the buyer of any material information about the property or transaction known by the agent, including information disclosed to the agent by the seller or seller's agent. A buyer-tenant's agent fees are not set by law and are fully negotiable. There's also agent for both, which is intermediary. To act as an intermediary between the parties, the broker must first obtain the written agreement of each party to the transaction. The written agreement must state who will pay the broker, and in conspicuous, bold, or underlined print set forth the broker's obligation as an intermediary. A broker who acts as an intermediary must treat all parties to the transaction impartially and fairly. May, with the parties' written consent, appoint a different license holder associated with the broker to each party, owner and buyer, communicate with, provide opinions and advice to, and carry out the instructions of each party to the transaction. Must not, unless specifically authorized in writing to do so by the party, disclose that the owner will accept a price less than the written asking price, that the buyer-tenant will pay a price greater than the price submitted in a written offer, and any confidential information or any other information that a party specifically instructs a broker in writing not to disclose unless required to do so by law. A license holder can show property to a buyer tenant without representing the buyer tenant if the broker has not agreed with the buyer tenant either orally or in writing to represent the buyer tenant. The broker is not otherwise acting as the buyer tenant's agent at the time of showing the property. The broker does not provide the buyer tenant opinions or advice regarding the property or real estate transaction generally. And the broker does not perform any other act of real estate brokerage for the buyer tenant. Before showing a residential property to an unrepresented prospective buyer, a license holder must enter into a written agreement and must be limited to no more than 14 days. That contains the information required by Section 1101-563 of the Texas Occupations Code. The agreement may not be exclusive and must be limited to no more than 14 days. License holder contact information. This notice is being provided for information purposes. It does not create an obligation for you to use the brokerage services. Please acknowledge receipt of this notice below and retain a copy for your records. JLA is the brokerage. John Sarver is the agent showing the home. Please initial here and take a picture for your records. Thank you.